Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Retirement Planning Simplified. I am Joe Curry, and as always, along with me, my co-host Lindsay Wilson. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm great, Joe. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. We're right in the middle of our client review season, so having a lot of fun seeing all of our clients and catching up,
Yep.
hearing about all the travel plans and families and everything else that's going on, and obviously helping them with their retirement planning. So it's been fun.
It has been fun to see everybody for sure.
Yeah, and how are you doing?
Great. Again, same thing. Just enjoying seeing everybody and getting caught up on everyone's life.
Awesome. All right. Well, Lindsay, before we begin today, I did just want to remind our listeners that the reason we create this content every week is because we want people to get the retirement advice they deserve, right? So we can't work with every listener, but there's no limit to how many people can listen and watch if you're on YouTube and benefit from the show. So if you're listening right now and you're finding the show helpful, our only ask of you is that you share the show with someone you care about who is in or approaching retirement. So that's my ask for today, Lindsay.
Great. Well, this week is a continuation of our podcast last week, based on the RISA framework, and we're diving into the second quadrant of the RISA framework, which is the income protection quadrant. So let me take that again. Sorry. Today, we're diving into the second quadrant of the RISA framework, the income protection quadrant. So, Joe, you introduced us to the total return last time. What makes income protection different?
Sure. So income protection is kind of the opposite of total return. Um, Total return, as we talked about last week, really focuses on growth through investments and flexibility. But people in the income protection quadrant, they're going to prefer. So if you're listening to this and you prefer a high degree of certainty, you want to ensure that your essential expenses are covered no matter what happens in the markets. This is where guaranteed income products can come in, like annuities. Like these types of products, will come into play. So that's the income protection piece. So it's perfect for people who are more risk adverse, don't want to rely on the market to cover their basic needs. They want to lock in a stream of income that's going to last as long as they do, kind of like a personal pension. So maybe more specifically, they want to prioritize safety and are willing to give up the optionality to get that safety.
Mhm. So, is this quadrant mostly for people who want peace of mind when it comes to their retirement income?
Yeah, no, I would say to an extent, I think that probably everyone wants that peace of mind, right? Now,
Hmm.
on the same hand, though, um, not everyone is willing to take the trade-offs that come with implementing the income protection strategy, right? Because there are trade-offs. There's no such thing as a free lunch, as they say, except for
Hmm.
diversification in Lindsay, or diversification in investing. But anyway, so now the individuals. So again, if you're listening and your income style is this income protection piece, then you are willing to take those trade-offs to get that protected income. So this might be you if you're still having nightmares about 2008, the financial crisis, or the dot-com market crash, or simply you just don't have the stomach for watching market volatility over your retirement, right? So this is going to be you if you're more focused on covering those essential expenses, so things like your housing, maybe your healthcare, the day-to-day living costs, right? So all these basic expenses or essential expenses, sometimes called, and you want to cover that with guaranteed income sources, then this is the quadrant, right? So the goal really is to minimize uncertainty. So it's especially attractive if you're someone who might not have as much in liquid investments, or someone who just prefers simplicity and security over growth potential and flexibility, right? So there's different reasons why you might fall into this quadrant.
So, let's get into how you implement an income protection strategy. What are the key tools or products?
Okay, so the main thing here is that the cornerstone of income protection is guaranteed income, right? You want to have that steady paycheck, just a lot like when you were working. So this typically comes down to a few potential sources. So for some people who are lucky enough, they have a defined benefit pension. Most of our listeners, you're going to have at some point Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security or CPP and OAS. And then the piece that we might bring into the puzzle, the most common piece here would be annuities. So with a pension, you receive that regular payment for life. And it's often based on years worked and the salary that you had while you were working. Um, again, if you don't have a pension, then annuities can create a similar effect. So the most common annuity in Canada and what we typically use here is an immediate annuity, which just means that You give a lump sum to the life insurance company, and in turn, they give you a guaranteed income for life. Now, there's some options you have here. It could be joint if you're married. You can have some guarantees in there. So, for example, that if you pass away in the first 10 years, your family still gets whatever hasn't been paid out yet. You could include a cost of living adjustment rider onto that annuity so that to at least some extent would keep up with inflation over time. The only thing to make sure you keep in mind is the more of these additions you add to the annuity, the more expensive it gets, or really the vice versa. That is, the less amount of income you get, right? It's going to reduce your income the more you add to it. So again, back to the implementation piece, you might be layering different benefits to get this level of kind of basic expenses covered by guaranteed income, right? So another option for creating, and I'm kind of jumping around a bit because there's a lot of different language here. So I want to make sure if people are reading or listening to other places, they kind of understand what the language is. But another way of putting this is creating a floor of guaranteed income, right? Again, to cover those basic expenses. So to cover or create that income floor, you might have a term certain annuity. This is kind of a different way of layering the benefits where maybe your CPP and OAS will be enough to cover those basic expenses, but only if you delay them to age 70, for example. And we've talked a lot about this on the show and why that could possibly be a benefit. So what you might do is a term certain annuity is, instead of buying an annuity that pays you an income for life, it pays you an income for a certain amount of time. So let's just say that kind of as a case study here, Lindsay, say you're retiring at age 60 and you want to maximize your government benefits. So you want to delay that CPP and OAS as long as possible, which would be to age 70, as I mentioned. And given your your preference for that income protection quadrant, you want to take market fluctuations out of the equation for the next 10 years, right? So you don't want to have to deal with the market going up and down and taking an income from your investments for the next 10 years while you wait for CPP and OAS. So you could purchase a 10-year term certain annuity that would provide you the income to kind of replace CPP and OAS until it kicks in at age 70. And then you're going to have that much higher CPP and OAS income, but you're going to be able to kind of keep it consistent over that whole period up to CPP and OAS, and then continuing to get the CPP and OAS the rest of your life, plus the inflation benefit that comes with it. Now, the most popular income protection strategy is to cover your essential expenses with guaranteed income and leave the rest of your portfolio for discretionary spending and growth opportunities. So as I mentioned earlier, some people, maybe they just want to keep things super simple. So maybe they would put all their money into an annuity if maybe they didn't care about leaving a legacy or anything like that. In that case, things can be simple. You just give your money to the insurance company. They give you that paycheck for life, and you don't have to worry about watching a portfolio or thinking about where you take your income from. So it could work from that standpoint. But typically what happens is once that floor is built, then you would kind of go back to that total return type strategy for your additional income. So another example here that I'll run through is, let's say that you are 65. Let's say you have about $5,000 of basic monthly spending needs. So when you're thinking about maintaining the house and you're thinking about your groceries and some of the things that you like to do on a regular basis that you want to make sure are covered, let's just say that's $5,000. And then let's say that you have an investment portfolio of $1 million. So your guaranteed income might look something like this if you had a pension. It could be, say, a defined benefit pension that's going to pay you $2,000 per month. Then maybe combined your CPP and OAS payments are about $2,000 a month. So now you already have $4,000 a month of guaranteed income. And to get to that $5,000 of your basic monthly spending needs, where you want to create that floor, we need $1,000 a month of additional guaranteed income. So remember, we had that portfolio of $1 million. So to make up the difference, you could purchase an annuity that would pay you a guaranteed $1,000 per month. That's going to get you up to $5,000 per month of guaranteed income to cover your basic expenses. Now, this isn't exact, but just as a ballpark, let's just say that the annuity, to get that $1,000 a month for life, you had to pay $250,000 to the insurance company, for example. So that's going to leave you with $750,000 to invest in that total return strategy. And that's going to be available to provide you excess spending money, flexibility, legacy, et cetera. So it's very rare, Lindsay, that we'd have someone come to us that just wants to put all their money into an annuity, right? in most cases, there is CPP and OAS. Many of our clients do have pensions, so often it's not looking at like, let's give all our money to an insurance company. In fact, I've never actually seen that. But to make sure we have that floor, this is a strategy where you still invest that excess money in a way that's going to give you some flexibility, optionality, maybe some growth potential, the ability to be able to grab money if there's an emergency, or maybe you want to gift things to your kids, or you want to have a legacy, when something happens to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so if we look at some other scenarios for income protection, who else might fit this quadrant?
Sure. So I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but we might also see someone who is more conservative by nature, and they just want their financial plan to be as simple as possible. So, like that idea of having predictable income without having to monitor the markets or make complex decisions. So that is kind of the other option. Again, it's not something that I've seen, but I know I haven't seen every listener or every person who's retiring. So that is a scenario that could potentially play out and could make sense for certain people. But usually it's more about just making sure that floor is covered.
Right. And as always, I think it's important to discuss the pros and cons.
Yeah, of course. I mentioned that at the start, that there's definitely trade-offs, right? So in a perfect world, we would all have guaranteed income and lots of flexibility with our spending. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that. So some of the pros of the income protection strategy is you're going to have some peace of mind knowing exactly what your income is going to be, right? It's simple. That annuity piece is simple. You don't have to worry about managing it. You don't have to worry about overdrawing your funds, so taking out too much money and running out later on in retirement. And kind of along the same lines, you don't have to worry about those ups and downs in the market. So taking your money out at the wrong time, or your money disappearing somehow, or whatever it is, because you know that you have that layer of guaranteed income from an insurance company. Now, the flip side of that, though, is that you lose the flexibility of your spending. So when you give the money to an insurance company, it's for an annuity specifically, you can no longer spend that money in lump sums. Like, you get your paycheck and that's all you get. So you lose that flexibility. You lose growth potential. So again, there's the peace of mind and the security, but there's no way it's growing. It just is what it is, right? So you lose that potential to have excess funds grow. And then anything that you give to the insurance company, again, for an annuity, you no longer have that to leave as an inheritance or to donate to charity. You can't access that money if you have an emergency and you need a lump sum of money right away. Like, you can't access that. You've given up the control. And then the other thing is your purchasing power could erode over time and not keep up with inflation. And I mentioned earlier, Lindsay, you could purchase inflation protection, but it's generally pretty expensive, and so you're going to get a lot less income up front, right? So in most cases, I don't think you typically see that inflation protection added. So
if we think about action items for the listeners,
yeah, sure. So I think the action item is the same as the last episode. It'd probably be the same action item for the next couple anyway, Lindsay. But go to retirementplanningsimplified.ca/blog. I'm getting a little more detailed with the URL there now. But anyway, if you go in there, you'll see show notes for all of our episodes. And if you click on episode 111, which will be this episode, or 106 with Wade Pfau, who created the RISA assessment, you'll be able to find a link where you can complete the RISA assessment for yourself. Alternatively, just send us an email, info@retirementplanningsimplified.ca, and request a link to the RISA, and we will send you a link directly. So anyway, if you go into that link, it's going to ask you a bunch of questions, but you'll find out what your retirement income style is. So I think that is the key action item out of this whole series, is understand what your retirement income style is. And then you can start thinking about how that's going to fit into your retirement when you retire. Or if you're already retired, you can start looking at, well, what are you doing right now? And is your current strategy in alignment with your retirement income style?
So that was a great overview of the income protection quadrant. What's next? What can listeners expect next?
Sure. So next we're going to continue on with the RISA, and the next quadrant is going to be the risk wrap quadrant. So this one is going to combine elements of both growth and protection. So where retirees can benefit from market gains while also having a safety net. It's typically for people who want to blend a risk and security, as you may have guessed. But it sounds really great, but as always, there's pros and cons and trade-offs. So we'll dive into all that in the next episode, Lindsay.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Thank you.